questioning, rising.
Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9.
Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day.
At mid-morning,
we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people,
and the things that make Africa smile.
12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful.
The heart of Africa to all corners of the globe, as we mentioned, so many stories, one planet, and of course, not just one perspective, many voices, many perspectives, and the perspectives we'd like to hear are particularly from you. So please do write into us. Let us know what is happening in your world, wherever you are. What are the stories that we're not reflecting on that are affecting you? What is impacting the choices that you make, the conversations that you have, wherever you are around the globe? It is all about what is happening on the continent and beyond, and your perspective is very much welcome. Welcome to Africa World Hour. So the numbers you should know, 802, that's the DSTV audio bouquet channel where you can reach us on, and we are on OpenView channel 628. And a reminder that you can also find us on X, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, at Channel Africa 1. Let's move on now to our top stories this hour. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Liberia have been elected to serve 2-year terms on the UN Security Council starting January 2026 alongside Colombia, Latvia and Bahrain. The new members will help shape key decisions on global peace, sanctions and conflict resolution. DRC Foreign Minister Teresa Kayikwamba Wagner has more on that.
Today marks a defining moment for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. With humility and determination, we welcome the decision of the United Nations General Assembly to elect our country to serve as non-permanent member of the Security Council for the 2026-2027 term. On behalf of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, and in the name of the Congolese people, I wish to express our deep and sincere gratitude to all member states that supported our candidacy. We also wish to pay tribute to the African Union. The unwavering support of our continental organization and the solidarity of all its member states have been instrumental. This election is not only a mark of confidence in the DRC, it is also a reflection of Africa's unity and its rightful place in shaping the global peace and security agenda.
And South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa's G20 presidency will continue to advocate for action to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. He was addressing the high-level virtual meeting of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development.
Policy space available to developing countries is significantly constrained by the servicing obligations of their debt and climate and development financing needs that they also have. We know, for example, that 23 countries in Africa are paying more for debt costs than critical development enablers like health and education. South Africa seeks to advance sustainable solutions to tackle high structural deficits and liquidity challenges and extend debt relief to developing economies.
And gender-based violence and femicide advocacy groups in South Africa are urging the government to declare a state of disaster in response to the alarming rise in GBVF cases. They argue that the crisis demands a coordinated, cross-sectoral response. GBVF activist Lebo Ramofoko says the country has lost the fight against crime, calling for urgent and sustained action.
I think not only a national disaster, but a state of emergency. We need a state of emergency. The same way we responded to COVID, because people were dying. We know what needs to be done. It's a multifaceted approach. We need it as an emergency. You need to declare this as a state of emergency. We knew how to do it during the World Cup. There were courts in the middle of the roads, courts that were open. We treated the World Soccer because there were international guests coming in better than we are treating our women who are looking after society, who are citizens.
And the head of the International Red Cross says what is happening in Gaza surpasses any acceptable legal, moral and humane standard. Mariana Spolaric's remarks follow the killing of dozens of Palestinians trying to reach US and Israeli-backed aid and distribution since Sunday. Spolaric has told the BBC that humanity is failing in Gaza.
We cannot continue to watch what is happening. It's surpassing any acceptable legal, moral and humane standard. The level of destruction, the level of suffering, but more importantly, the fact that we are watching a people being entirely stripped of its human dignity should really shock our collective conscience.
Thousands of protesters have surrounded the Bulgarian parliament building, angry at plans to join the European Union single currency. Bulgaria was given the go-ahead to join in an announcement this afternoon. Some, however, or surveys, however, suggest that about half of the country's population are opposed to the move, as the BBC's Nick Thorpe tells us.
The protest outside the National Assembly in Sofia is organised by the opposition revival movement. Defence of the Bulgarian currency, the lev, has become a rallying cry for revival, which regards it as a symbol of national sovereignty. Many Bulgarians also fear that the introduction of the euro, scheduled for the 1st of January, will increase prices. The Bulgarian currency has been pegged to the euro since it was launched in 1999.
And Vietnam's communist government has scrapped a long-standing policy limiting families to 2 children. The country has experienced historically low birth rates in recent years. The BBC's Asia Pacific editor, Mickey Bristow, reports.
The 2-child limit was introduced in 1988 when Vietnamese officials believed families were having too many children, although it was never enforced as strictly as China's one-child policy. The birth rate in Vietnam is now below what's needed to keep the population at its current level, hence the lifting of the ban. But Vietnamese women, as in other East Asian nations, now seem happy to be having fewer children, so this policy change will perhaps have little effect.
And finally, a court in El Salvador has found a group of veteran ex-army officials guilty of murdering 4 Dutch journalists in the early 1980s. The court was told that the journalists were ambushed as they accompanied rebels in El Salvador's civil war. The BBC's Will Grant has more.
The verdict was handed down after a short period of deliberation by the jury, which found the 3 former military men, a former defence minister and 2 colonels, guilty of the murder of 4 Dutch journalists more than 40 years ago. They are all in their late 80s and early 90s, and their advanced age was a factor in their lesser sentence of 15 years in prison rather than the 30 they could have received. The trial is believed to be the first case of a civil war crime documented by a 1993 UN-backed Truth Commission to reach a sentence in court.
And that brings us to just about 10 minutes past 10. Just a reminder that you can reach out to us. Send us your messages on WhatsApp 063-406-9126. Or if you want, simply just reach out to us on Instagram. We are on TikTok as well as X on @ChannelAfrica1. Now, South Africa's youth unemployment rate remains stubbornly above 30%, with many young people struggling to access meaningful work. A new platform called SPAN, officially launched on Wednesday, aims to change that by making trust, verification and inclusion the pillars of recruitment. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabanga was at that launch.
In a country where many young job seekers are overlooked and employers remain skeptical of curriculum vitae claims, SPAN steps in with a bold solution, a verification-led employment platform designed to restore trust and widen access to opportunity. Tlali Tawana, Chief Marketing Officer at SPAN, says the idea was born out of the urgent need to connect credible job seekers with employers who want to hire confidently.
What really inspires SPAN is the reality we see all around us. You know, young people being overlooked despite their potential. South Africa has a serious unemployment crisis across the board, and I think the most recent stats have really put a spotlight on that. But when you dig deeper, it's also a trust crisis. Many employers are skeptical about CVs, qualifications, and experience claims, while job seekers feel invisible and excluded. SPAN was really built to change that. By putting verification and dignity at the center, we are making it, and we've made it easier for employers to trust and for young people to show up as their best credible selves. It's really about giving people a fair shot, and not just access.
At the core of the platform is the SPAN report, a shareable verified profile that confirms a candidate's identity, qualifications and work history. Tawana explains how this simple innovation is transforming how hiring decisions are made.
The SPAN report is like your verified passport to opportunity, if you may. It pulls together key details about a job seeker, their ID, qualifications, experience, references, and really verifies each one of those items through the trusted partners that we've collaborated with to make this a reality. This gives employers real confidence that they're not wasting time or taking risks. It's critical because the trust gap is very, very real. Businesses want credible hires, and candidates want to be seen as more than just another name on a CV. Verification, we believe, closes that gap and really speeds up hiring for everyone.
But SPAN is not just built for South Africans with smartphones and data. It is designed to work across devices and even via WhatsApp or unstructured supplementary service data or USSD. Tawana says accessibility was never an afterthought.
So from day one, we designed SPAN to work for everyone, not just the digitally connected. So yes, it works on mobile, it's data light, and we're actively partnering with community centers, our field agents, wherever we can help people sign up, get verified on the ground even, and build their SPAN reports in person. Whether you're a domestic worker, a hustler, a graduate, a seasoned professional, the idea that SPAN must work in your and their world, not expect you to adapt to ours, which is a key differentiator, we feel, to other employment platforms out there.
Although still in its early rollout phase, SPAN is already gaining traction in communities, townships and SME networks. The initial feedback has been promising, according to Tawana.
I mean, while we're still in the early stages, the response so far has been incredibly encouraging. Even with limited activations, we've seen strong interest from both job seekers and employers. Job seekers have told us things like, this makes me feel seen and taken seriously, while employers, both small and bigger businesses, are saying it's a no-brainer, but also are saying that SPAN is helping them cut through the noise and connect with real credible talent.
As the country works to rebuild trust in the labour market, SPAN could signal a new era in hiring, one where being verified is no longer the exception but the standard. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now we continue with a story that really has gripped South African audiences across electronic media far and wide. And we're talking here about the various incidents, the reports that we've seen of gruesome murders, not only of young women, but of children as well. South Africa marking Child Protection Week, and Save the Children South Africa raising the alarm over the disturbing rise in ritual and muti killings of children. These crimes, rooted in harmful superstitions, are costing young lives and exposing major gaps in child protection. Joining us now is Gugu Xaba, CEO of Save the Children South Africa, to talk about this crisis and what must be done to protect our children. A very good evening to you, Ms. Xaba, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening to you and good evening to your listeners.
A very somber mood in South Africa, whether we like it or not. I think there are very few people who aren't asking themselves the question, what is happening? What brings this about? And particularly when we look at the fact that June in South Africa is also known as Youth Month.
Yes, it is a difficult time for South Africa, but Save the Children South Africa believes that it is about time that we get to such points. We have been talking about the fact that South Africa is tolerating violence, and when you tolerate something that is wrong, it grows and it becomes worse than it was the day before. So the fact that we've tolerated violence so much, then the perpetrators also thought I may get away with it. So this means right now, the fact that we're seeing more reports of children that are being murdered, we're seeing an increase in the number of children that are missing and never found. And, the exploitation of children is in many, many ways. I mean, right now we're from the Zamazama issue, now we're with the issue of Jocelyn, of Twekwe, all these cases are growing. So it just says it's about time we did things differently from the family side to the highest level of government. Thank you.
And as you say, we've reached crisis point because perhaps we needed a very strong reality check. Not that we haven't been seeing that over the years, but it's not for nothing that the SAPS has launched an occult division because of the alarming incidents in which children are being targeted because of muti killings or superstition-driven killings. I was looking at the SAPS report, at least from January to March 2025. It doesn't disaggregate the crimes by age, but it certainly is shocking to look at in terms of numbers.
Definitely. But even though you are talking about those numbers, if you have looked at locations nowadays, you will find a string of traditional healers. Now they are out there like street vendors who are selling vegetables. That tells you that we have an increase of traditional healers and any other type of healer. And that is an exposure to what is likely to happen because they've got different beliefs and they do things differently. So the level of vulnerability for children is growing in all directions. I mean, we've got people that are trafficking children for labor and exploitation. You've got people that are increasing in finding better medicines, whether traditional or whatever. And then you've got other people, because of poverty, they'll tell you that I'll do anything to get money. So the factors that make children vulnerable have grown. And thus, it's important that our policing, our ability to take care of our children in the home setting must grow. It must improve. Just as much as we protect certain valuables that we have, children must be top in the priority list. Thank you.
As you say, Sis Gugu, that there is a growing number of traditional healers, but and I know this is something that we have to tread on very carefully because there is a misnomer that a traditional healer is somebody who would then go on to practice witchcraft. As we know that some people actually are literally that healers. They deal with organic medicines and have, ancient institutional knowledge thereof. But I want to look at the places where it reflects the crime scene, that are children-specific places of crime. The fact that we are seeing it at schools, we are seeing it at home, we are seeing it at social spaces, in homes as well. So is it saying that society has ceased to care about looking after the child? I grew up being told that it takes a village, so that means every mother, father on the street or Sisi Puti was a disciplinarian if you're out of line. Does that mean that our society has been so badly damaged?
Definitely. As Save the Children, we've said it even before, that the moral fiber has degenerated. And it means the care for the human life has also gone down. And this is unfortunate because it's in the home, it's in a school, child to child, it's in or adult to child, it's in the community. And research had told us before that when an individual, child or adult, is just observing violence occurring around them, there is some change in them, and they learn that next time I'm in such a situation, I need to retaliate and fight. there's no time whereby people are taught that we have a responsibility to talk about problems so that we can solve them amicably. Instead, there's just that fight attitude, and it's observed from a home setting, and then it grows with everybody. And unfortunately, we're not the same. Some people react badly to being beaten, and they keep a grudge, and they want to release it somewhere. And that is where the problem has been, and it's continuing.
So let's talk about where the gaps are in strengthening the reporting systems, in investing in prevention, in enforcing the law. And I know that's a big question, so please take your time in responding to that.
Okay, let's start with prevention, because we really would like to do more on prevention, because for us to be able to see the difference, it must start there. And the prevention of any form of violence from occurring needs to begin at a home setting. And how we see it, even the law, even in the Children's Act, is put in that way, that there's violence that is imminent. How do I see that violence is imminent here, and what do I do to prevent it? In this case, we say it's important for every individual to understand that there's what we call safeguarding a child, or safeguarding anyone around you, because everyone must be safeguarded from violence occurring from them. Now, when you safeguard, you are looking at what are the issues that are around this child that may expose them to being violated, or to, maybe being more vulnerable. So we look at the environment, we look at the people that are around them. How safe are the people? How responsive in terms of the care of that child is? So in that way, even when we teach the child to know that there is imminent danger where you are, so retreat. Same with the adult. Observe that the child is being exposed, so make sure that you remove that child from that environment. If all adults and children can be keen to safeguard themselves and the people that are around them, we can at least be able to protect people. And this means when you observe that violence is likely to occur, you also have a responsibility to alarm, because if you are suspecting it, chances are very high it's going to happen.
So let's zero in on that, Sis Gugu, the alarm, raising the alarm part, strengthening the reporting systems. Very briefly, what needs to be done to improve that?
Anyone that observes likely violence from occurring, they need to report it, because you are better off investigating and not finding the issue other than reporting simply because the child has been stolen or the child has been sexually exploited. You observe the person grooming the child and you thought it's not going to get there, and it eventually got there. So it's important to report whatever you suspect, and then immediately then, if it has occurred, then you are a witness. So we must stop turning a blind eye. That is why we are saying we are tolerating violence. You observe it and you turn a blind eye and you say, it's not me, it's not my child. Unfortunately, it will get to you, given the rates at which the exploitation and abuse of children is going. We are all along saying it's 1 in every 3 children. It's going to 2 in every 3 children. And that means we're going towards over 80% of children. So it's important to report so that somebody does something about it. We've got the police, we've got social development, we've got community-based organizations and NGOs like Save the Children. We do take the alarm and we take action and we follow up. So it's important that people report. And just care about the next person always.
It's a pity that we have run out of time, because there's just so much to unpack, especially when we talk about the law. There's a legal framework, but there are still problems there. But hopefully we'll schedule another time to do that. Gugu Xaba, CEO of Save the Children South Africa, speaking about the rise in ritual and muti killings of children and the urgent need for collective action. It brings the time to 25 minutes past 9.
Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. And 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the various federation, they are identifying young talent every year within the national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix. Kwa nini wanamuziki wengi sana wa kizazi kipya hawafiki mbali pale wanapofanya muziki?
Ni kwa sababu kitu cha kwanza ambacho naweza nikaongelea nikagusia zaidi sana ni kusema kuwa wale wasanii wanapotoa ngoma yao ya kwanza ikiwa kama kahiti kidogo tu, wanaanza kutamba mitaani, wanaonekana kama wapo majuu zaidi sana.
Kuna wanamuziki wengine ambao wanakimbilia kwa waganga wa jadi. Hivi muziki na dawa vinaendana?
Kitu cha kwanza naweza nikasema ni kuwa muziki na dawa haviendani. Lakini muziki ni kipaji.
Kuna watu wengine wanashutumu wasanii wengine kwamba wanaroga.
Wanaroga, wale wasanii kama wanaroga ni kutokujiamini tu. Lakini kitu cha muhimu sana ni kipaji.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
I will continue doing that. We look at South Africa's Department of Agriculture now. It says it's extremely worried following the discovery of foot and mouth disease cases at a Gauteng feedlot facility owned by Karan Beef, the country's largest beef producer. The detection has raised serious concerns about the potential spread of the disease, with the government warning that other producers, particularly those with less stringent biosecurity measures, could also be at risk. Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
Foot and mouth disease, or FMD, is a highly contagious virus disease that affects cloven-hoofed animals such as cattle, pigs, sheep, goats, and some wildlife like buffalo and antelope. It is caused by the foot and mouth disease virus, FMDV. In a country like South Africa, with a significant agricultural sector, an FMD outbreak can disrupt meat exports, threaten food security, cause financial losses to farmers and the economy. Dipepeneneng Serage, Deputy Director General of Agricultural Production, Biosecurity and Natural Resources Management in the Department of Agriculture, told Channel Africa that if biosecure establishments such as Karan Beef could get FMD, others that are less biosecure are in danger. But what immediate steps is the department taking to assess and strengthen biosecurity protocols across others less? Serage explains.
Steps that the department is taking to ensure that biosecurity measures are strengthened will involve shortly, after Minister signs a directive, what we call Section 9(1)(b) of the Animal Diseases Act, which will be about controlling of all cloven-hoofed animals in the country, the movement thereof. So that is one way of strengthening the adherence to biosecurity measures, which farmers already know of, but for some reasons they do not adhere to. So we'll also be controlling auctions and movement, transportation of livestock in the country.
Serage says this is not classified as a disaster.
Government doesn't have to really have any financial assistance to farmers for things that like FMD outbreak, which is not a disaster. Definition of a disaster is about things that could not be prevented. Foot and mouth disease cannot be classified as a disaster because if farmers adhere to biosecurity principles, we wouldn't have FMD.
With the department currently dealing with outbreaks in KwaZulu-Natal and now in Gauteng, questions around whether or not South Africa's vaccine supply chain and response capacity is adequate to handle multiple current FMD outbreaks. I had the opportunity to speak to some farmers in Mpumalanga province, and this is what they had to say.
Well, this isn't just about us. It affects exports, jobs in rural communities, and it actually, and the whole food chain actually. We need a national plan, not just a local response.
I mean, we need quick communication and more support. Delay in vacancies or movement restrictions can cripple our operations. We've invested in biosecurity, but if places like Karen Beef are affected, I mean, what chances do smaller farmers like us have? It's really scary.
For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Samosa in Mpumalanga, South Africa.
It is 28 minutes to 10 now. Let's continue with developments in and around the continent. Ghana's artisanal and small-scale gold mining sector is expanding rapidly, mostly outside of legal oversight. The growth is driven by limited job opportunities and the promise of quick income, but an increasingly link to environmental destruction and foreign involvement in organized criminal networks has also been noted. A new report based on 3 years of research and satellite analysis reveals how unlicensed mining is intensifying in regions like Western and Savannah and why enforcement efforts remain weak. To speak about this, we're joined now by Marchena Hunter, Director of Extractives at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So let's just start with Ghana's gold sector, how it has evolved over the years, and particularly with the rise of artisanal and small-scale mining. What have been the observations that you say are stark?
I think one of the first big observations is the uptake of new technology and equipment. We're seeing a lot of advancement, and a lot of that has been introduced by foreign nationals. And so seeing, for example, the shift from just using mercury processing to using cyanide leaching, which is a lot more profitable and generates a lot more high qualities and quantities of gold. And so while we do see artisanal mining, which is what you think of as miners like with a pan and using hand-held equipment, there really is this shift towards a greater professionalization and size and production capabilities of these mining sites. And so it even, I think, sometimes begs the question, are we even seeing artisanal mining anymore? Or when we talk about criminality or illicit activity in the sector, are we really talking more about almost like small scale or medium scale mining?
And just about how much tonnage has been funneled through illegal gold sales or, as you mentioned, these criminal operations that are seemingly growing in that part of the country?
We don't have exact figures, especially in this report. We do have a part 2 coming out later this year. But what I can say, it's a lot in the tons. Estimates are hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. It's very hard to track because production in gold that's being smuggled out of the country is not declared clearly. But it is very large amounts, and the impacts on the environment are significant.
And we've seen the illicit flows of minerals spread across not only the continent, but particularly in conflict areas. West Africa has seen an increase of that kind of incidents. But is it because of informality in the gold sector that's making it attractive for, the profitability of gold as a monetary vehicle?
Yes, informality makes the sector vulnerable and easy to exploit by criminal actors, and the high profit margins make it very attractive. With the gold price going up, this is even more the case. But there's also issues around corruption, land access, weak borders, that sort of thing. That further drive this activity.
And Ghana's gold sector itself, what development have we seen, and especially regulations to deter this kind of activity?
There's been a lot of efforts in Ghana to credit the government over the years. Everything from they did a ban on Galamsey, they had a gold buying scheme, they've centralized gold buying, they've decentralized gold buying. So it's really a great case study in seeing the impact of different types of policy responses. One of, I think, the big policies that kind of just ended was gold for gas, a policy that required all ASM gold to be sold to the central government. And this really caused some issues and did open up issues for smuggling, because a lot of gold is pre-financed or bought before it even comes out the ground by financiers, which many of them do engage or support smuggling, and so, or are not linked to the government. So when you have this sort of financing, even if it is fully legal, and then the government changes the policy and requires you to sell gold to government, it really has a big impact on these financing schemes and pushes the sector probably more towards criminality and smuggling, because it's much more difficult to access that financing that then enables you to mine and sell gold.
I think your report mentions capacity limitations in some of these efforts. What exactly are you referring to?
I mean, it's something that we see across a lot of Africa and globally, honestly. It's not just something limited to Ghana. Mine sites are really remote, spread out. They're constantly evolving, as the report refers to. And so it does take a lot of capacity to monitor them, whether it's motorbikes or boats or remote sensing using satellite imagery. It takes a lot of investment. It can be expensive and time consuming, but it is really needed if we hope to better monitor and prevent illegal mining as well as combat it. And so those, I think, are some of just the capacity limitations that we see that would be useful for better monitoring and combating illicit activity in the sector.
So you also say that there needs to be an investment in some of these methods that will enable stronger monitoring of the sector. So what are the international best practices that exist that, and can there be information sharing, skills sharing by countries in the north who benefit from some of the illicit flows coming out of Africa? That is a fact, whether we'd like to acknowledge it or not. That is something that happens, or at least who do have trade deals in which they are able to mine for these minerals on the continent.
Yes, I think one of the more exciting things, one of the things that I found really exciting about this work was we developed new methodologies around how to use remote sensing and spatial data analysis to map not just where mining has been, but where it may move to in the future. A lot of remote sensing mapping mining has been based on tree cover, so basically where there's not trees anymore, and mapping that change. But we used a number of different indicators or proxies, including flow accumulation, changes in nightlight, that sort of thing. So we were better able to not just get kind of more current indicators of where mining is happening, but also develop a bit of a predictive capacity for where it may move to in the future, which is really, I think, a big advancement here. But this sort of technology, getting access to the satellite imagery, the sort of data, the computers and processing capacity you need to process this imagery is not cheap. It requires technical capacities, support. And so I think if we're looking at how other countries can support Africa or just within Africa, I think it's investing more in this spatial data analysis and employing it more proactively on the continent, which is an investment. It's perhaps maybe seems as a sizable investment for what it is, but I think it is one that will bring results and have a real impact going forward.
And such a pity we have run out of time, because I actually want to understand some of the more localized practices or terms and how they affect the industry, like Galamsey, for instance. But much appreciated your time. Macheda Hunter is Director of Executives at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, just speaking to us about Ghana's gold industry and how artisanal and small-scale gold mining sector are expanding rapidly, and in some cases, or quite a few cases, outside of the legal oversight.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse.
Nduna wazamalonda ku Malawi aletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Ilovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Ilovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Ilovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula shuga kaya ndi ku Ilovo kaya ndi kusalima shuga akumagulisa ku maiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
And it's 17 minutes to 9, 17 minutes to 10, excuse me. 17 more minutes here on Africa World Hour. Thanks for joining us. I am Tshepiso Makwetla. So we spoke about e-voting earlier on, and we are looking back how with South Africa's 2024 general election seeing just 59% voter turnout. The question then, and probably is still now, is how do we make democracy more accessible? This is why we are having this conversation, really. So one proposal that's been gaining traction is electronic voting or e-voting. We're joined by Sakile Dube, who recently explored this topic in a piece for Tech Cabal, speaking to stakeholders across sectors about this. Let's find out what he discovered. Sakile, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening, Tshepiso. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So just tell us about what sparked the article and what areas you segregated yourself to, particularly with regards to the sentiment of accessibility of democratic rights.
The article was prompted by renewed the national debate just across the conference that was held earlier this year, and the research, the article mainly looks into modernizing South Africa's electronic system, especially as digital transformation increases, as you know, and the country seeks to address some of the challenges such as long queues, bulky paper ballots, and of course, declining voter turnout. So looking back at 2024 elections, people complained about a lot of things, including voting as late as 9 p.m. So those are some of the challenges that sparked the debate.
And you spoke to various people across sectors around e-voting. What was the immediate sentiment? Were people behind this, and do they see this as being a solution to just some of the existing challenges?
Yeah, the mood is cautiously hopeful. While many see e-voting as the future and recognize its potential benefits, there's quite a significant caution due to concerns over infrastructure, cybersecurity, and of course equality. The stakeholders actually agree that any adoption must be gradual, transparent, and it should be tailored to South African realities.
So let's talk about those realities. From the feedback that you got, did you notice any generational or socio-economic trends about the opinions shared and how e-voting could impact South African society and democracy alike?
One stakeholder actually talked about the issue of digital divide, that, with the limited internet access, unreliable electricity, and digital literacy gaps, especially in rural and marginalized communities. So there will be barriers of having some data and other issues as the internet. So if we were to opt for e-voting, it should be free, of course, without having to cost anyone data or anything like that.
And that's what I'm thinking about, cell phone penetration and the likelihood or the existing digital elite, so to speak. So did any of the people that you speak to make suggestions on how we could overcome some of these challenges?
Yes, of course they did. They actually talked about the issue of blockchain, like that we could. They actually talked about the issue of, so if we were to have e-voting, so it should be on on general cell phones, like the rural areas, to reach out people who don't have smartphones also. Okay. It could allow them to vote on SMS or something like that, so that they can actually do not use internet at all or do not have to use smartphones. So something like that could be actually considerate, or some people who actually struggle with phones at all, there should be some alternatives on how they could vote also on
and then obviously entered the discussion around cybersecurity, because we know in countries where the discussion, for instance in Malawi, there has been fears of manipulation of the process in order to ensure a win for one particular political movement or party or another. So what have been the discussions and the challenges around this? It's about public trust.
Yes, cybersecurity is always the concern of these e-voting issues, because with the issue, because people mostly, they don't know what's happening at the back end. So that's mostly the worry, that, okay, now that we don't know, we are doing e-voting, but we don't know mostly what happens at the back end, as much as we know that most of the technologies are actually at the back end. There is someone who actually sees what's going on. So the e-voting issue is also the issue of trust, to see who will be involved, to see what happens at the back end of the e-voting.
All right. And just finally, has there been a suggestion that a hybrid approach might be better? Or are there at least some regional experiences that could give us hope on implementing e-voting effectively and transparently?
So while young people, the younger, very young generations might take this as a something that is very interesting to them because they are quite friendly with e-voting. But as for the older generations, while their sentiment is actually very tense on the issue of trust, but some they suggest that blockchain can come into being, and then where systems are being seriously scrutinized using technologies, and there will be no kind of interruption or kind of forging of some sort of votes during that process.
Sakile Dube, thank you very much for your time. She is a Southern African correspondent for Tekabal, which is where that article came out from. It's 9 minutes to 10.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In recent weeks, East Africa has seen a disturbing rise in human rights violations. In Kenya, digital activist Rose Njeri was arrested under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act after creating a tool for citizens to oppose the Finance Bill 2025. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Atuhaire reported being detained, tortured, and sexually assaulted by security officers.
East Africa needs a reset. We need to get back East Africa to where the founding fathers are. When President Nyerere and his colleagues Jomo Kenyatta and the Ugandan counterparts fought for independence, they fought for independence to get Africans out of poverty, to get Africans out of slavery. The leaders who took up power have since gotten into regression.
Neto Agostino, co-leader of the United Green Movement Party.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. The pulse of the continent in 60 minutes. Stay informed and inspired with Africa World Hour on Channel Africa.
And that's exactly what we're doing now, putting the finger of the nation's pulse. And when I talk about a nation, I'm talking about the African nation on what is happening in the tech world. So Sentech Africa Tech Week 2025 wrapped up here in South Africa in Cape Town. And I brought together some of the brightest minds on the continent. One of the major highlights, the Pitching Den, saw 7 of Africa's most innovative startups go head-to-head for the spotlight, support, and some serious prizes. One of the standout winners, Imtiaz Riley, joins us, and a very congratulations to you, Imtiaz. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So tell us what you have to be proud of, and what did you do? What was your idea for the Pitching Den?
Yeah, so essentially, my name is Imtiaz Riley. I'm the founder and CEO of a tech startup called Loop. And what we're doing is we're digitizing payments in emerging economies. So my background is in the taxi industry, and what we've kind of done is built the payment solution to pay for your minibus taxi ride, but it evolved into so much more, where we're now enabling businesses and people to pay via WhatsApp.
Okay, so tell us, how does that work?
So essentially, you have a Loop wallet on WhatsApp. You can then load the wallet with funds, and then you can transact or you can pay at Loop-enabled businesses or public transport.
And do you work with other institutions to be able to make this more accessible?
Yes, no, definitely. We've got some partners like the SAB Foundation, and we've got some backing from Visa here in South Africa as well. We're currently working with Absa Bank, who has given us our TPP license, and that allows us to facilitate these transactions, being a non-banking partner facilitating these transactions.
I mean, one of the great things that's been said about this generation, Imtiaz, has been the fact that you have used technology to resolve problems that you are encountering. So you grew up in an environment within the taxi industry. So when did this come to you as an idea? And tell me the thinking around how you managed to, reach this point where you have obviously won various accolades, including Social Enterprise of the Year.
Yeah, so I think that what's really important for myself and my co-founder Jamie Thurston Weingart is that we solve real life problems for people. We know that many people have tried to do payments in the emerging economy and they failed. There's not a lot of success stories when it comes to payment, but I think what we've done quite well is we're very customer centric. So we actually speak to our users and unpack their pains and gains before trying to build technology to solve their problems.
So what's interesting about this, Imtiaz, you say that trips can be booked or cancelled while using this?
Not essentially booked and cancelled. What we do is we facilitate the payment in public transport, but we've also got another facet of the business, which is mobility, where we enable businesses to book the existing public transport infrastructure on our or the existing public transport on our platform.
And would that be a group thing? Because I'm just thinking that we know that the taxi industry is a very dynamic, interesting animal that is not easy to control. So how would you navigate that?
So at the moment, we only use drivers from that actually has permits and the compliance to drive a particular route. So I think that what stands out about us is that we use drivers from the area, to drive people home. A lot of times where you get trouble is where people infringe on routes, and that's how we've been navigating our way around the space in mobility.
But the advantage of this, as you say, is that it's changing people's lives in that it's giving them the opportunity to earn an income and assist with financial education. Tell us a little bit more about particularly those financial education programs that you're running and the people who have benefited from Loop.
Yeah, so we've got a financial education course called Budgeting with a Purpose, and we've rolled it out to everybody on our platform, because what we often find is that, the emerging economy is reluctant to have, bank accounts and transact digitally because they think people are going to watch them. But we've kind of taught or tried to educate our users on our platform of the advantages of having a credit score. For example, they go to loan sharks because they can't qualify for credit. They borrow 100 Rand, they have to pay 200 Rand back. So with having a digital footprint now, you can get access to finance.
And just finally, what would you say to a fellow budding entrepreneur out there who's looking at doing what you are doing, but who's probably just a little scared off because of lack of finance and support?
Yeah, so as you know, entrepreneurship is really hard, and it's very, very, very lonely at the top. I think a business is a tougher sport, and you must never stop dreaming. And if you want to be successful in business, you're going to have to be resilient.
Right. Thank you so much for that, and all the best to you. Imtiaz Riley, one of the big winners at the Centec Africa Tech Week 2025, the pitching den for his innovative mind and venture behind Loop. So we've just got a minute to go. This is the end of Africa World Hour. That means the beginning of Hotlines. Shayla and Gumana in the studio. What do we expect this Wednesday from you?
So we're going to be sticking to the theme of things. I see we're talking entrepreneurship. We're going to be speaking to an award-winning philanthropist. She's an entrepreneur, and she is the visionary behind Valaise M Boutique. Mm-hmm. They have a store in Mall of Africa. I know that she also has an e-commerce store for those, but they're opening their new fashion store at Mall of the South. This is on the 6th of June. So we discussed with her, of course, just trailing how far she has come. We have spoken to her before on Africa Tonight, and just listening to her zeal for the African continent. We'll be unpacking that as well. So that and so much more coming up on the show.
So what type of business is it? I know you say fashion, but what type of fashion? And
so she is athleisure. If you're thinking of athleisure, You're thinking of modern chic African wear, she is your go-to.
And it's called?
Valaise M Boutique.
As in, how would you spell? I'm asking because I'm going to go to Mall of Africa and look, obviously.
Love it. So it's VELAZE.
Okay. All right. Yes. We'll have a look at that. It's 10 o'clock. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your viewing and listening here on Channel Africa. From us, it's goodbye.
Hotlines. fresh perspectives about love after dark. With Sheila Dukumana. Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the energy. Feel the connection. Channel Africa, the African perspective.